According to a landmark study conducted by the Pew Research Center, 63% of American men under the age of 30 are currently single. In contrast, only 34% of women within that same age bracket report being unattached. Pause and consider that number for a second. This isn't a minor statistical blip. It's a divide so wide that it demands we confront an uncomfortable question. What is actually happening to relationships in the modern world? According to a landmark study conducted by the Pew Research Center, 63% of American men under the age of 30 are currently single. In contrast, only 34% of women within that same age bracket report being unattached. Pause and consider that number for a second. This isn't a minor statistical blip. It's a divide so wide that it demands we confront an uncomfortable question. What is actually happening to relationships in the modern world? Every indicator points in the same direction. Marriage rates keep falling. People are tying the knot later in life than any previous generation. Birth rates continue sliding across nearly every developed nation. A growing number of men are quietly opting out of relationships altogether, while loneliness has become so widespread that health professionals now classify it as a genuine public health crisis. So what shifted? Did men wake up one day and lose interest in relationships? Did women suddenly become impossible to connect with? Or is there something far larger unfolding beneath the surface, something most people aren't ready to talk about honestly? Today we're diving into 7 powerful reasons why growing numbers of men are silently disengaging from modern dating. This isn't an attack on women, a defense of men, or an attempt to reignite the war between the sexes. It's an honest look at the psychological, social, and cultural forces reshaping relationships right in front of us. Because here's the reality, most people assume men are simply annoyed or frustrated. But frustration isn't the real headline anymore. Withdrawal is. More and more men aren't protesting, arguing, or trying to reform the system. They're simply opting out, choosing not to engage the way generations before them once did. And when millions of individuals independently arrive at the same decision, it signals something far deeper than a string of personal letdowns. Stick with this until the end, because the final reason reveals why this quiet shift could permanently alter the trajectory of relationships, marriage, and family for generations ahead. The first reason men are pulling back from modern dating is that the entire system no longer feels predictable. People are naturally willing to pour in time, energy, and emotional investment when they believe that effort has a fair shot at producing something meaningful. But once that link between effort and outcome disappears, something shifts psychologically. For generations, there was a silent agreement: work hard, build stability, treat people well, and become a dependable partner, and your odds of a lasting relationship would rise. Nothing was ever guaranteed, but the path felt clear enough that men believed the effort was worthwhile. Today, that certainty has eroded. Many men now face a dating landscape crowded with situationships, undefined relationships, mixed signals, delayed commitment, and expectations that shift constantly. One moment they're told to pursue boldly, the next, to hold back. One person rewards confidence, another reads the same behavior completely differently. The rules feel inconsistent, and when people can't make sense of a system's rules, they instinctively grow cautious about engaging with it. This isn't about assigning blame, it's about recognizing how uncertainty shapes behavior. Most men don't expect dating to be effortless. What they expect is that effort should correlate with outcome. When that correlation breaks down, frustration quietly morphs into hesitation, and hesitation eventually becomes disengagement. Before long, the question shifts from "how do I succeed at modern dating?" to something far more revealing: is this even worth my time anymore? That mental shift is where the larger story truly begins. The second reason is something almost nobody notices. Most assume men are becoming more vocal about their dating frustrations, complaining, arguing, venting online. While some certainly are, that's not where the real shift lies. The bigger change is far quieter. Men are simply walking away. Psychologically, this distinction matters enormously because there's a massive difference between complaining about a broken system and withdrawing from it entirely. Complaining still signals emotional investment, a belief that things could improve. Withdrawal signals the opposite, a conclusion that effort no longer leads anywhere worthwhile. That's exactly the pattern emerging. Rather than pouring energy into navigating an increasingly confusing dating scene, countless men are redirecting that same energy elsewhere, building businesses, focusing on careers, improving physical health, picking up new skills, traveling, investing money, and constructing lives that don't hinge on whether someone chooses them. To outside observers, this can look like avoidance or bitterness. But for the men making this choice, it feels less emotional and more practical. People naturally gravitate toward where effort yields predictable results. At work, hard work often leads to advancement. In the gym, consistency produces visible progress. Learning a skill leads to improvement. These systems make sense because cause and effect are clear. Modern dating often doesn't offer that same clarity. When people conclude that outcomes have become unpredictable, they don't necessarily fight harder often, they simply stop showing up. That doesn't mean they've abandoned the idea of love. It means they've stopped believing that relentlessly chasing it is the smartest use of their limited time and energy. And that quiet decision, multiplied across millions of people, is reshaping modern relationships more than most realize. The third reason has little to do with relationships themselves, and everything to do with the environment surrounding them. Today's dating culture is shaped heavily by social media, dating apps, and a digital world constantly competing for our attention. Whether we consciously notice it or not, these platforms have transformed how people meet, communicate, compare themselves to others, and evaluate potential partners. For many men, this has produced an environment that feels relentlessly draining. Dating used to be confined to people encountered through work, friends, family, or the local community. Now people are bombarded with thousands of profiles, endless options, and constant comparison. While an abundance of choice sounds beneficial on the surface, psychology tells us that too many options frequently make decisions harder, not easier. People become more selective, more indecisive, and ultimately less satisfied with whatever they choose. This non-stop exposure to alternatives reshapes expectations. Instead of investing in one meaningful connection, people start wondering if someone better is just a swipe away. The outcome is a dating culture where commitment gets postponed, relationships stay undefined, and uncertainty becomes the standard. Many men eventually recognize this pattern and decide they're done participating in a system that seems built to keep people endlessly searching rather than settling down. Instead of chasing fleeting validation through matches and messages, they redirect that same energy into careers, health, meaningful friendships, and lives that feel fulfilling independent of an unpredictable dating market. That redirection isn't just altering individual lives, it's quietly reshaping the entire culture around modern relationships. The fourth reason men are choosing to remain single is the discovery that peace has become more valuable than constant pursuit. For years, men were taught that fulfillment depended on finding the right partner, that persistence, self-improvement, and relentless pursuit would eventually deliver lasting happiness. But for many men today, that chase has become emotionally draining. After enduring repeated disappointment, unclear expectations, and relationships that never seem to lead anywhere, many begin asking a different question entirely. Instead of how do I find someone, they ask, am I actually happier on my own? Surprisingly, a growing number answer yes. Being single offers something many felt they were slowly losing: peace of mind. They control their own schedules, make their own financial choices, decide how to spend their weekends, where to travel, and which goals to chase, without constant negotiation or compromise. Over time, many men notice they've become calmer, less stressed, and more focused, simply because they're no longer living in perpetual emotional uncertainty. This doesn't mean relationships have lost their value to them. It means they no longer believe a relationship is required to live a meaningful life. That mental shift changes everything out of loneliness and starts approaching them from a place of genuine choice. Ironically, that's usually when he becomes most emotionally magnetic. Confidence grows naturally once happiness stops depending on someone else's presence, and for many men, that quiet sense of freedom has become more valuable than an endless pursuit that may never deliver the peace they already possess. The fifth reason is that independence reshapes a man in ways most people overlook. Living independently forces total responsibility for every part of life: managing finances, making decisions, solving problems, building routines. Over time, these responsibilities cultivate something more valuable than mere convenience: genuine confidence. Psychologists have long recognized that confidence is built through competence. The more capable someone becomes, the more secure they feel in themselves. Men who spend years living independently often discover they no longer crave constant reassurance from others. Their self-worth starts coming from what they've built, rather than from who chooses them. This independence also builds a stronger sense of purpose. Rather than organizing life around finding a relationship, many men pour their energy into advancing their careers, securing their finances, maintaining their health, developing new skills, and pursuing goals that give their existence meaning. They stop asking how to appear more appealing and start asking how to become a better version of themselves. Perhaps the deepest transformation is emotional. Independent men become far more selective about where they invest time and energy. They no longer feel compelled to force relationships that aren't working or endure situations that drain their peace. They grow comfortable walking away from unhealthy dynamics because they know they can build a fulfilling life solo. Ironically, this is exactly when many men become most attractive, not because they're trying harder to impress anyone but because they've stopped needing to. Their confidence comes from within, their purpose gives them direction, and their independence lets them choose relationships from strength rather than dependence. The sixth reason is perhaps the most widely misunderstood. When people notice more men choosing to remain single or step back from dating, they often assume those men have grown bitter, angry, or fearful of commitment. While that description might fit a small minority, it doesn't capture the larger trend. In many cases, what looks like a rejection of relationships is actually a shift in priorities. Many men no longer measure success by whether they have a partner, they measure it by the quality of the life they've built. They've come to understand that a relationship should enhance an already fulfilling life, not serve as its foundation. That realization completely changes their approach to dating. Instead of rushing into relationships because society expects it, they become more patient and far more discerning. They stop equating being alone with being lonely. They discover that solitude offers clarity, stability, and the space to understand themselves better. As a result, they become far less willing to sacrifice their peace just to avoid being single. Unfortunately, this shift is frequently misread. When a man stops chasing relationships, people assume he's given up on love entirely. In truth, most haven't given up at all. They've simply decided that any relationship entering their life must genuinely enhance it, not complicate it. This growing population of single men shouldn't automatically be viewed as a commitment crisis. For many, it represents an entirely different mindset, refusing to enter relationships out of pressure, fear of loneliness, or social expectation, and instead waiting for something rooted in mutual respect, shared values, and genuine compatibility. Until they find that, they remain content building lives they already enjoy. The seventh and final reason is arguably the most consequential, because its impact reaches far beyond individual relationships. If this trend continues unchecked, the ripple effects won't stay confined to men or women alone. They'll reshape the future of relationships, marriage, and family life for an entire generation. The early warning signs are already visible. Marriage is happening later than ever. Birth rates keep declining across the developed world. Long-term relationships are becoming rarer, while situationships and undefined connections grow increasingly common. Trust is harder to build. Commitment keeps getting delayed. More people approach dating with caution instead of optimism. This doesn't mean healthy relationships are vanishing. They certainly aren't. People still meet, fall in love, marry, and build wonderful families every single day. But when a growing share of men quietly exit the dating pool, the entire ecosystem shifts. Fewer participants breed more uncertainty. More uncertainty breeds more hesitation. And hesitation often leads to even fewer people willing to take the emotional risks that meaningful relationships demand. The encouraging news is that this trend isn't set in stone. The solution isn't for men to grow bitter or for women to grow defensive. Healthy relationships have never been built on blame. They're built on trust, mutual respect, emotional maturity, and shared values. Those foundational principles haven't changed, even as the dating landscape around them has transformed. Perhaps the most vital lesson here is this: don't structure your life around chasing relationships. Build a life that's meaningful entirely on its own terms. Then, if the right person appears, you're not searching for someone to complete you. You're inviting someone to share a life you've already built. That mindset may be the sturdiest foundation for lasting connection in today's world. What we've unpacked here isn't really about convincing men to remain single or claiming relationships no longer matter. That would miss the entire point. The real insight is understanding why so many men are making choices different from previous generations, and what those choices reveal about the world we're currently living in. The data is clear: more men are staying single than we've seen in decades. And that shift isn't accidental. It reflects deep psychological, social, and cultural changes reshaping how people think about relationships, commitment, and personal fulfillment. Whether or not you agree with these choices, the trend itself is impossible to ignore. The system feels unpredictable. Withdrawal has quietly replaced complaint. The attention economy has rewritten expectations. Peace has outweighed pursuit for many. Independence has built confidence, purpose, and self-reliance. Society frequently misreads the reasons behind the exit, and if these currents keep flowing in the same direction, the future of relationships may look nothing like what previous generations experienced. But here is the single most important takeaway of all: don't let this make you bitter. Don't let it make you cynical. And never spend your life assigning blame to the opposite sex. Whether you're a man or a woman, the healthiest path forward is building a life rich with purpose, direction, and meaning, one that doesn't hinge on your relationship status. Develop your character. Guard your peace fiercely. Cultivate genuine friendships. Chase goals that actually matter to you. And when the right relationship does arrive, you'll step into it from a place of strength, not emotional dependence, carrying not desperation, but choice, not incompleteness, but wholeness ready to be shared. That is the quiet revolution unfolding beneath the surface of modern dating, and it may end up building stronger, more intentional relationships than any generation before has ever known.